So, in sight of the college football playoff, the NCAA is looking at changing potentially three rules that can shorten games, mainly because the 12 team playoff, you're going to have more games that these teams are going to have to play. So, eliminating the time that they're playing in certain games would allow them not to wear their bodies out, but also have still have that excitement. So, the three rules are this. So for the first rule, change that under consideration. So the first one is running the clock after a first down is awarded, except in the last 2 minutes or either half. Right. So typically, in college football, after every first down, the clock is stopped. Right until the ref set the ball, and then it rolls again. This kind of creates some excitement. It doesn't make the game longer. It does make it like the NFL a little bit more. But the NFL, only time you get a break is a 2 minute warning. But they're going to say, hey, in the last 2 minutes, the clock does stop. I do think that makes the game interesting as well, too, when the clock does stop, after each first down, because, teams can't just run the ball out, run the clock out. They wanted to, like in the NFL, they have to get that first down. So that's the first rule. A running clock after each first down is awarded, except in the last 2 minutes of the game or either at half. The next rule is eliminating the option for teams to call consecutive timeouts. I'm not a big fan of this rule, mainly because I know sometimes teams go out there for a play and then they call a timeout, and then boom, they call another timeout. Just see what all based off that look they got. Now, and I'm understanding. So eliminating the option for teams to call consecutive timeouts. Now I'm not sure if I have to clarify to see if it's if I can call a timeout, then call a timeout. But I think it's on the opposite side. But we'll see what happens. I think NFL you see it happen as well too. I'm not a big fan of that one. I like kind of the idea that it really adds some strategy to it, some suspense to it, and NFL should like, and NCAA should like it as well too. They can get more advertising, for these spots as well if they, and charge more people. The last one is carrying over any fouls to the next period instead of finishing with an untimed down. So what they're saying is, if something happens in the particular, like in the third quarter, right? You know, they'll carry that over. That they'll kind of replay it or carry that over. I'm actually not, to be honest with you, I'm actually not clear what they're saying about here. Let's figure this out. Carrying over any fouls to the next period instead of finishing with the untimed down. That's interesting. Let's take a look and see what they're actually saying with this, because carrying over any fouls to the next period instead of finishing with the untimed down. So I guess, okay, I'm an idiot. Basically saying, hey, look, instead of, if the third quarter ends and there's like a pass interference, instead of having it as an untimed down, they're going to say at the start of the next quarter, they'll run that play with their running clock, which I think is stupid. That's just dumb. So that's what I thought it was before. It's just dumb. Let them play the untimed down and get their time back. If it's an untimed down, it's an untimed down. What they said, they said it's going to shorten the game to about 7-8 minutes. It's going to shorten the game to 7-8 minutes, and then about 8 less plays. They said according to Shaw, the college football games have averaged 180 plays per game over the past 3 regular seasons and typically last 3 hours and 21 minutes. A year ago, he said, we began to pivot away from just worrying about the clock to the number of plays, student-athlete exposures, and that's what really become more direction now, led by our commissioner, Shaw said. With the focus more on player health and safety and the college football playoff extended, which could create more games for players, it's appropriate to look at what these numbers of the student-athlete exposures, right? How often they're playing, make sure they're getting visibility, etc. I like the distinction between the college football and the NFL. There's some nuances in the NFL that like for example, the having 2 feet in versus 1 foot in. The clock stops after the first down. It forces college football games to last longer and be more competitive. Where a team just can't kneel like they do in the NFL, and I think NFL it is more deserving. I don't like the fact that NFL does for the playoff that every opportunity gets the ball. Every team gets the ball. I think that, hey, if you win the coin toss, great, stop them, and if you can't stop them, score. So I'm not. Well, it'll be interesting to see what what actually happens with these rule changes because it's a panel. They're just talking about. They're having conversations and whatnot. Their biggest emphasis is making sure their players are safe and they're not playing a lot. A lot more games. You think if it's a 12, if a 12 team college football team, in a playoff now, teams can play additionally, 3 or 4 more games. Depending on what they're seeded and how long their seasons are, if they're in the if they're in the conference championship game, so they can additionally play, 4 more games onto their season. Great for more exposure, more visibility, more game film. But you also have to think about, how hard does a team play? If does this dial into this is now dial into you know dial into players sitting out and getting ready for the NFL draft. So those are 3 big rule changes. I'm gonna say them again. Running the clock after a first down is rewarded, except in the last 2 minutes of either half. Eliminating the option for teams to call consecutive timeouts, and then carrying over any fouls to the next period instead of finishing with an on-time down. So playing that penalty in the next, so it would be the next 15 minutes if it's the third quarter. So I have pass interference, no on-time down, but they started in the the fourth quarter with a timed down. Not a big fan of those last 2, but the first one, I can understand it, because they're still keeping that component of the last 2 minutes where a team just can't run the ball out.